All right, welcome back, everyone. This is right now streaming on CBS 8 on the CBS 8 app. I want to run through some things right now because we're about to begin what will be extended coverage here of what is happening with the very latest when it comes to what unfolded on Monday, which of course was the Islamic Center of San Diego shooting, in which we saw two gunmen attack the Islamic Center. Three men were killed there, and then we found out that both shooters later died by what appears to be self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Now, of course, those victims are Amin Abdullah, a 51-year-old mosque security guard, congregation members Nadir Awad, and Mansour Kazia. Now, in our studio right now, we actually have Marc Carlos, who is a local criminal defense attorney, who is joining us to answer some of the questions that we've seen while covering this story. And I think for Marc, thank you so much for joining us. You've got more than 30 years of experience practicing criminal defense. I think for a lot of people, the number one question that we hear is, the gunmen are dead. Is there a criminal case that can even come forward? Because I think for a lot of people, they look at these criminal cases as a way for the victims or the family of the victims to seek justice. So what avenues do the victims or the community there even have?
Sure, absolutely. There's clearly an investigation that's going on. I mean, none of these things happen in a vacuum.
Right.
The fact that the idea that two individuals can just like plan this on their own, it's pretty remote. Generally speaking, what will happen is the investigation will continue probably down the electronic and internet trail that these two individuals were part of. You know, who they met, who they talked to, who encouraged them. On the other track would be their access to the firearms. So they will look at the parents. You know, I mean, there's a large number of firearms that were in these parents' homes. Yeah. Were they properly secured? How were they? How were they? I mean, what did they know about their own children, right? Their own kids. Did they have any mental health issues? And so that's kind of what they're going to be looking at as far as the parents' involvement in this case, because, you know, you have a general duty to keep your firearms safe, because, you know, if you're in the wrong hands, you know, you got a problem. And in this case, we know that morning, I mean, the two guys show up in camouflage, you know, outfits, and they take the guns, and she kind of knew something was up at that point.
Now, we do know that the mother of the 17-year-old, at the very least, did call police. That's how they put the bolo out. We know that she said that, you know, he was suicidal. One of the things that I want to ask is the fact that we have one of the gunmen is age 17, one of them is age 18. We'll start with the shooter that was 17. As you mentioned, we know the case, obviously, or at least the investigation will look into, you know, his parents. He lived at home, etc. We've seen this start to become a discussion, sadly, because we've seen so many of these cases involving mass shooters in schools and so forth. The parents, they could be potentially liable in either both criminal and civil, or both.
Absolutely both.
Yeah,
both. I mean, you run in the face of involuntary manslaughter charges as well as some other. It depends on what they knew.
Right.
You know, I said this before. It's like most parents can, or anybody really can, walk into somebody's room and get a good idea as to what they're all about. You know, you can look at things on the wall. You can look at, you know, what albums they're listening to, and you generally know their overall demeanor. So these parents would have known what they were up to. I find it very difficult to believe that this was all hidden. The question is, did they take it seriously? And we don't know whether there's any mental health histories for any of these kids, which would then have some sort of, you know, potential duty on the parents to really make those firearms safe, to keep them out of their hands.
Now, is there anything that happens if, for instance, now we move over to the 18-year-old? This is now someone who is legally an adult. Are there any factors that would maybe potentially implicate his parents? And again, these are, I know that we're dealing in a lot of hypotheticals here, but we're just trying to sort of take an overview here of the case.
Obviously. I mean, if he's living at home, yes. If he's not, then no, he's an adult.
Right.
But if he's living at home, clearly they have some sort of duty to make sure that he's not up to any, criminal activity, to say the least. If they turn a blind eye to it, that's an issue that they'll look at. I can say this, that I've been involved in terrorist cases prosecuted in federal court, and when they start the investigation there, they go deep. I mean, they get into every single.
When you say that, like, what does that?
Everybody thinks that their text messages are deleted and their WhatsApp messages are gone. They're not. I mean, they'll find a way in. You know, the federal authorities are pretty good at that. And I've had cases where they just follow an electronic trail and it starts implicating people. Again, these two individuals operating in a vacuum just together, I find it highly unlikely. Other people were probably encouraging them. Maybe people provided intelligence as to about the temple. It's hard to believe that they acted alone.
So essentially, just because these two gunmen were found dead, that does not mean this is signed, sealed, and delivered in terms of a case. That there is going to be a thorough investigation. And as you pointed out, the FBI is involved here. I mean, this is likely going to be investigated, as we heard San Diego Police Chief Scott Wall, as a hate crime. There are federal statutes who I imagine that they may look to kind of fully investigate, as you mentioned, the potential of this being categorized as terrorism, and so forth. And so I do also want to know, though, off the top of my head, the case, I believe it was in Michigan, where the parents were tried for what was that mass shooting, the liability case. Have we seen similar cases like that in the state of California recently?
So the closest thing recently, there's a case up in Orange County where a mother was charged with involuntary manslaughter. She allowed her child, a 14-year-old, on an e-bike, who apparently ran into an 82-year-old man and killed him. So they charged her with involuntary manslaughter, probably based upon her knowledge of her child's activity on the bike, reckless behavior on the bike, and so that's the way they kind of hooked that in. So in this case, on the state side, the involuntary manslaughter or other lesser criminal sections, would all have to do with her knowledge, or their knowledge, the parents' knowledge of what their child was up to and what they were like. Yeah. And again, you've got a guy. I don't know anything about that part of the investigation, but let's say the guy is sitting in his room all day long, playing, first-person shooter video games, right? And he's got all kinds of, death memorabilia everywhere, or even swastikas. We don't really know at this point. But if the parents see this, they know that obviously there's something going on. They know this kid is also homeschooled, right? One of them at least was homeschooled.
Yeah.
So, they become isolated, then find themselves essentially online talking to people. And this is what brought these two together.
These are things that parents, again, in a criminal sense or a civil liability sense, will likely be told that, this is something you should have picked up on, as you're pointing out there, at the very least. Now, does the fact that she called police, and again, I know we're dealing with limited information, these are all, the fact that she called police, does that give you a sign that this could potentially maybe not go that way where we're looking at liability?
She absolutely did the right thing by calling the police and expressing her concern. Yeah. And I've said this before, but the issue is what led up to that. How much did she know prior to watching them go? Did she come in after these guns were all loaded into the car? Did she watch them load the guns into the car? There's a lot of different things. And again, how are the guns secured? Are they easily accessible? Yeah. So a lot of it has to do with her knowledge and her activity. So she did the right thing by calling the police and expressing her immediate concern. And so that was admirable on her part. But what they're going to be looking for and what they're looking to in the investigation is what led up to it and how much did she know? Turning a blind eye to your children engaged in possibly violent activity is not a admirable quality, and also kicks in some liability.
I want to talk about the investigative techniques, and as we said, it's very likely we're going to be having two sort of like separate investigations ongoing, the FBI and then of course the city of San Diego, or it may be one investigation where the FBI is kind of looking into this with their help. What sort of investigative techniques are they using? You mentioned, your text messages, your WhatsApp, your emails, none of that is ever deleted. What sort of techniques are they using beyond even just electronic forensics?
Well, they're going to, obviously, again, I find it hard to believe that these two individuals acted just alone. There had to be somebody else involved, people encouraging or providing information to them to allow them to act. A simple thing like a cell phone, these right here, they drop the phone for analysis, and everything is on there. Your searches, your text messages, your phone calls, if your GPS is on, basically where you've been and how long you were there for. All of this is available. So when you get one of these things in discovery as a criminal defense lawyer, there's hundreds of thousands of pages of information there just on one phone. And if there's multiple phones, then there's going to be more information. And then they'll go track the electronic trail, who they contacted, then find out who these people are, do the same thing with their phones. I mean, this is something that, it's amazing it happened in San Diego, if you think about it, right? Yeah. So if it can happen here, essentially it can happen anywhere. And I think they want to do as much as they can to make a show for the country that this type of activity can't go on and that can be easily hunted down.
Okay. Marc, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll put a pin in this conversation. We'll take about 2 minutes here, and then we're going to come back. I want to ask you a couple more questions here before we wrap up this conversation. And again, I want to point out that we are going to be having an extension here of this show today. Normally we end at 10:30, but of course we know that there is a prayer service and later on today a burial that will be happening for those 3 victims here in the Islamic Center of San Diego shooting. We initially told you that we would be bringing you maybe some of the sounds and images of the prayer service. That's not starting till 11, but we want to just say that we have and we will be sort of respecting the request for privacy. So we'll be showing the organizing beforehand. We'll be having our Tori Apodaca live out there just outside of Snapdragon Stadium where this prayer service will be going on. And we'll be doing our best to, again, respect the privacy while also continue to honor the victims there of this shooting. But first, we're going to take a quick break. And then, like I said, that will start a part of our coverage here at 10:30. All right, everybody, welcome back in. This is Right Now. Again, we are streaming here on the CBS 8 app. And as I said, we will be continuing our coverage here on the memorial, the prayer service of the 3 victims that were killed in the Islamic Center of San Diego shooting. But right now, want to dive back into our conversation here with Marc Carlos, the longtime criminal defense attorney here in the city of San Diego. Again, not related in any way to anyone who might be potentially in this case, or I should say not working with anybody. We're using him as an expert source here to just go over what have been a lot of the questions that people have had in the immediate aftermath in terms of the sort of like legal avenue that either victims have, the parents, family members of the shooting. But Marc, we were just talking here during the break. I wanted to ask you, we've heard talks about the manifesto. And also the social media activity of these 2 shooters leading up to this shooting. What, if any, responsibility? And we've seen sort of a change in how social media sites even sort of self-report and even self-police. We've seen anecdotally a lot of studies put out about the rise in hate speech on social media because of some of those changes. So what responsibility, if any, do any of these social media sites have if there was something to report that to authorities?
Well, I mean, obviously there's First Amendment First Amendment rights which are implicated there. And, people are free to make whatever statements they can. They just can't act upon them. So, I mean, I don't see any sort of action that can be taken against the hosts unless they knew that there was some sort of activity that was imminent.
Yeah.
And they had reason to believe and good reason to believe that something was going to happen. But most of the cases, there's just those sites are so widespread, they're worldwide, and it's just difficult to keep track of what individuals are doing. The only thing really they actually can act on is usually like child porn, because it's something that's tangible, and they can then follow it.
Yeah.
So in a case like this, it's like they can't go after everybody who makes a negative statement, and that's unfortunate.
Okay. Now, would that, though, be potential evidence for, let's say, caretakers, parents, custodians of these two individuals?
If they knew.
Yeah.
If they knew. I mean, if these people were online doing that. I mean, it's the other thing, too, is different generations don't have the same sort of, they have the same sort of access, but they don't know how to access the forums that their children or younger people are on, because they just don't understand. I mean, they have no idea what Discord is. They don't know what any of these sites are, and so you can't really hold that against them. I think as far as the parents go, it's whatever they see that's tangible. I mean, they go into a room and see something which kind of says, look, maybe something's going on, and talk at the dinner table. It could be that he's saying things that are just crazy at the dinner table. I mean, those are the things that really would implicate the parent. I mean, because you can't really hold them responsible for what they're doing online in the privacy of their room or on their phone somewhere else, so they can't really do that.
And there's also been discussion about who could have potentially motivated these individuals. There have been some pretty notable figures who may not be a direct link, but may have said things either just before or after that a lot of people have been pointing out. And I don't want to get into specifics necessarily, because I don't want to spread or share what was said. But there's free speech, and then what I've always understood is that there are oftentimes things that it's the fire in the movie theater thing. What is that threshold where someone would have to be, and I'm maybe talking more civilly, where someone could be sued for something they said, that whether it's the community, the victims' families who want to say, you helped inspire these individuals? Is that a very leading? Sorry,
it's your classic law school. I think the fire in the theater is actually a case. But yeah, if you yell fire in a theater and you do it for the purposes of hurting people, that creates sort of criminal implications, because something might happen. If you yell fire in the movie theater not knowing what's going to happen or being mistaken, then that's entirely different, right? So it all depends on the knowledge of the individual. So if somebody is actively trying to instigate action, right, versus encouraging people to continue their beliefs, there's a fine line.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If somebody knows that these people have the ability, the capability to get to weapons, like say he's saying, "Hey, are there weapons in your house? Do you think you can get to them?" That's a different situation than, I agree with your hate speech. These people are horrible. Our country is being overrun by these individuals. We need to get rid of them. That's protected free speech, and there's not a whole bunch you can do about that. But if they're actively encouraging them to get firearms, to do something, then that might be a different situation.
Now, I want to go back before we wrap up this conversation. We've been talking a lot about the guns and whether or not, again, these were firearms that were. We know that there's an 18-year-old involved in this, but with the 17-year-old, we know there's been reports that some of these firearms were taken from the parents. How secure do guns have to be for there to be, I guess, unsecured do they have to be for that liability to trigger in?
Yeah, so the cases that do trigger the gun owner's liability have to do with access to the weapons and how, I think the one in Michigan or the state you were saying, he gave the gun as a birthday or present to the kid, knowing he had these mental health issues. That's kind of the level you have to be in. I think what is interesting here is there are multiple weapons. If the reports are true, I think there were 30 plus weapons.
30 plus weapons, that's what's being reported right now.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to wonder, what is somebody doing with 30 weapons? I mean, it's your right to own firearms, but if you have those, are they all secured? I mean, I can't imagine that you can secure unless you have a safe. In which case this person, the kid had access to the safe too. So that's the trigger, is like, how did you keep them safe? If it was one, think about this, if it was just one gun and you have it for protection purposes and you have it in your room and you keep it in the closet, that's kind of what you're supposed to do, right? If you have that, but we're talking 30 guns, and I'm not a gun collector. I'm assuming that some people like to have guns and collect them, but these are multiple weapons which should have been secured, particularly again if the parents had any knowledge that their kids were mentally unstable or expressing kind of hate beliefs.
Okay. Marc, before we let you go, anything that stands out to you now, maybe moving forward, that you think we have to keep an eye on this? We should follow this lead.
I think it's going to be important. If they wrote a manifesto, the FBI will be looking at if there's a way to tie it to anybody else. I think the electronic trail of their contacts on the internet, who encouraged, who spoke. I mean, those are all independent investigations, which the FBI and police will be doing. And the thing about it, I can tell you, after all these years in criminal defense, is that the perfect crime is kind of impossible. Everybody gets caught one way or another, and because somebody else talks. Whenever there's more than one person involved, there's going to be something's going to happen. And so there's a lot. I'm assuming there's a lot of nervous people out there right now because they obviously contacted these kids and talked to them and may have encouraged them, and one of them might start talking about other people.
What does closure look like for any of these victims, family members, community members? I mean, I know that's a question that might be hard to answer, but in terms of, again, the legal avenues that they have, what does that even look like?
So, I mean, closure for the families is I mean, that's a personal thing for them. I mean, do they want justice in the form of other people going to prison, or do they want the general public to know that this is not activity that should be condoned? But unfortunately, hate continues and will continue. It's a human nature, and it's getting fueled every day by podcasts and television programs and commentators, and people feel more justified making those statements. So now you have these things that are out there which before wouldn't have been said, but now are being said on a daily basis, and then they just get escalated and escalated and escalated, and before you know it, you get situations like this.
I mean, I know we're sitting here, we're talking about, obviously the fact that we are trying to see what it is that people can do beyond just the two shooters. But is that a newer trend in terms of criminal defense as well as civil? Just the fact that we are seeing potentially others be held liable, whether it be involuntary manslaughter, et cetera. Is that a newer trend?
Yeah, I would say that as far as sort of parents' liability, like lending a car to a kid that shouldn't be driving, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, that is relatively recent, but the idea of other people being held responsible for agreements in criminal cases it should basic conspiracy law, which goes back to the foundation of our criminal system. Because again, most people have help from other individuals, and so they have criminal liability as well. So that's what they're going to be looking at.
Yeah. And then you mentioned the one case in Orange County, where obviously that's pretty notable. But has there been anything, at least in your experience, or anything else that you've looked at as well too?
You keep track as a criminal defense lawyer. You keep track of cases, nationwide, and it seems that there have been a handful of cases where parents at least have been charged with, having access to the firearms with somebody who's mentally unstable. I think that's the critical thing, because if your child is just a regular kid, and his access to the guns would be to go shoot in the backyard or play with it. That's different from a kid that for a fact is, one, mentally unstable, and two, having hate speech or a hate ideology.
Yeah.
That's a big difference, and I think that's what's going to trigger any criminal liability in this case.
Okay. All right. Marc, I want to thank you again so much for joining us here in studio. We are going to let you go here. We've got about 3 minutes here before we are going to take a break to continue our coverage. What we are going to do is sort of, for you viewers at home, just sort of roll through the facts, what we're looking at, and I believe we are beginning to see some of the images of the prayer, the memorial service that will be going on. But Marc, again, I want to thank you again for lending so much of your insight here to going ahead and again helping us here with this. So as we take a live look in here, this is the prayer service that is going on right now. Again, this is just outside of Snapdragon Stadium. And we understand that this is something that is going to be taking place at 11 a.m. Our show, which normally ends at 10:30, will actually be continuing on until 11. We are going to be hearing from our Tori Apodaca, our chief photographer. Kenny McGregor is the one who is giving us this shot here right now. He is going to be able to give us a little insight, maybe potentially on what it is that he's hearing, what he's seeing. Kenny is someone who is very adept at doing that as well too. But again, for those of you who might be regularly tuning out here at this time, we are going to be continuing for at least another half hour leading into our midday show. I thought that was a very, very introspective interview there that we just had with Marc because of the fact that I think it gave us a lot of insight into what potentially avenues that the victims have here, the community. And I know that that's been something that many have been wondering within the comments, within everything that is going on. And Marc did a very excellent job of laying down what the rights are for the family members of the shooters, what it is that they could potentially be looking at. Again, not directly involved with anything yet, just blending his more than 30 years experience in criminal defense attorney, just saying, this is what I've been seeing, both here in the state of California, across the nation, when it comes to, again, cases where you might have someone who should have picked up on something, behavior, the missing weapons, whether or not money was being, involved, etc. Again, just sort of taking them through what it is that could be going on. And he did an excellent job.